Joining me now via Skype is a public affairs analyst, Ayodele Adewale. Ayodele, good morning. It's good to have you join me right now. The call for state police has been on for so many years now. But what the National Assembly is doing now seems to be what has been awaited a long time, looking at the police laws that has been since 1943.
Well, I want to appreciate them for taking that bold step. If you remember in 2006, when we organized the pro-national conference process, this was one of the most talked about issues that state must have their police, local government must have their police for effective policing, because it makes no sense. You bring in a policeman from Port Harcourt and you're taking him to Sokoto, whereby he cannot speak the language, he does not know the geography of the area, and you intend that person to try to curb any insecurity nature of the place. But when you take someone from within the environment who knows the nooks and crannies of that place, have seen how people grow up, knows how to tackle them, understands the language, and of course live within the community. This helps for effective policing.
All right.
And
this has taken a long time now coming. What do you think are some of the fears that people have expressed that has delayed this long-awaited, long-talked-about police reform?
People have this fear that political office holders could use it to their own advantage. And we have often told them that even the federal government in the past have often also used it to their advantage against the opposition. So for me, there's no fear. There's no fear. This is the best way to go. We've seen other developed climes, how it functions. It only means that the central police also must be very, very apt towards monitoring the process and the workings of the state police and local government police.
How far from the modern policing do you think the Nigerian police is? If you compare what is going on in the country, how the police react, and what access they have to modern equipment and intelligence, and what is obtainable in other parts of the world?
Well, we've not really utilized our human capacity thus far. To the fullest. We have a lot of airgates in Nigeria that have built technologies that are used for policing all over the world. And I think for modern policing, effective policing, technology should be employed, especially for their forensic aspect. It's very laughable when we hear that thousands are killed all over the country, hundreds, people are just killed, and police are telling us that they cannot get the killers, especially, political killings, as the case may be. And you also see policemen using firearms to take the life of people, whereby you can simply use, stain guns and tranquilizers and all of that. So I think technology will help us more, especially using cameras, biometrics, and all of that. And Lagos State have moved thus far. Lagos State has a biometric lab that is very, very useful now. But the thing is, do we have the kind of police system that can make use of this thing? And I want to recommend that the basic entry into the Nigerian police should be OND. OND. If you have OND holders and they are well paid, given the right infrastructure, like you have in Lagos State, giving them, vehicles, and also creating, what do you call this now? Insurance for life insurance for them. Should, in case God forbid, a policeman is killed at the field of operation, then the family will have something to fall back to. And of course, their dependents should be taken, adequately care of, well care of. This will ginger the police people to put in more, just like you have in Germany. Yes, we are more than ready. Post-independence, we used to have such thing within the Nigerian nation, and it is nothing new. Lagos State have been demonstrating it, despite the fact that they don't call it police. You have the neighborhood watch that goes around to gather information and work in sync with the Nigerian police. I see no reason why people should be fearful about allowing people to police themselves, especially getting police that live amongst the people for effective policing. What we should look forward to is deploying more of technology that will allow the police to function increase their welfare, that will improve their morals, and of course give them the adequate wherewithal to give them the enabling essence of carrying out their duties.
Now, in many states of the Federation, there's no clear-cut laws as to how the state police would function. Now, in what context of the law will the state police function?
Definitely, states be allowed to create their laws. Laws can be different from state to state. We've seen that in the U.S. and some parts of developed countries where from state to state the laws are different. But again, you have the federal law. So as long as we operate a federalistic system of government, we should be able to take up the nitty-gritty that surrounds it. And that does not mean that we have totally extinguished the federal police. When there are issues that borders federal territorial matters, the federal police comes in. When issues are beyond the local police, they also do, just like we have the magistrate court. We have the magistrate court, you have the Federal High Court, and you have the Supreme Court. So the same thing we can have for our policing system here in Nigeria.
All right, another aspect has to do with finance, because there are arguments as to the way the system is right now, where we do not have even distribution of resources. How will the police function optimally when it comes to finance?
Well, I think if you look at the Nigerian Constitution, the first business of government is security. And in allocating finances, the first thing government should do is to plug in security finances within their budget. So if any state comes up to tell you they don't have the finance to finance their policing, that is a lie. And God has blessed this country so richly that there is no state that you go to where you don't have mineral resources or natural resources or human capital resource, as the case may be. What we need to do is to reorganize the Nigerian Constitution, put more powers to the states, put more powers to the local government, and reduce the power at the center. When you have this, I can assure you that every state can run on its own. And be that as it may, the press also, and the civil society also have a lot to do. You need to monitor a lot of these characters called governance. You need to look seriously into their expenditure, and the people have to call them into account. Take, for instance, Lagos State. Lagos have done wonderfully well beyond the thinking of mere men. Lagos has taken the challenge of policing its environment. If Lagos is given the opportunity to start up the state policing system fully, then other states can plug on from Lagos State.
All right, now when you look at the insecurity the country is faced with, can state police really tackle that?
Of course they can. Look at Borno State, for instance. You have the vigilante groups. You understand, the situation went beyond the military, and the military needed people on ground that know the terrain to show them the way, and of course to help them gather information and tackle the situation. So if they can't deploy vigilante in Borno, they can't deploy vigilantes in Zamfara, then what are we talking about? What is the difference between the vigilante groups and the police setup? The major difference is the law that set them up, and of course putting more training and uniform for them. So there is no difference in this thing. We're just hiding behind a finger. Let's move ahead by having community police, have state police, and local government police.
All right, let's look at the police reform bill that the Senate had attended to yesterday. How will this renew confidence in Nigerians towards the police force?
Well, I've not carefully studied the bill, but if I am to use the knowledge that I got during the PRONACO exercise led by Chief Anthony Enaro, CFSAL, Dr. Becker and Somkuti and Professor Wole Shoyinka, we did discuss extensively about the creation of the local government police and state police. And if they borrow from that context, I think we have no fear. The major thing is that the sovereignty of the nation is more important. The central government still have a lot to do by monitoring the systems as it is put together in the various strata of government.
All right, public affairs commentator Ayodele Adewale, thank you for your time on TVC Breakfast.
Good to have you join me right now. A lot of Nigerians have said that the way the police is, or the way it is practiced in Nigeria, is still very crude or maybe even primitive. What would it take to make the Nigeria police a more modern police?
First and foremost is the enabling law for them to operate within the context of social realities. Second is for them to deploy technology and a lot of forensic systems in their investigation. And thirdly is for them to be very humane in getting information and, of course, handling suspects. Not in the case whereby every suspect is presumed guilty and they are using all forms of barbaric nature in order to extract information from people that is called torture. These are things that have been fast forgotten in security environment.
Okay. Now, in looking at various or two major aspects of the police, some have argued that the challenge is more in the structure than in the practice.
Security environment.
Okay. Now, in looking at various or two major aspects of the police, some have argued that the challenge is more in the structure than in the practice, while others believe that it's more of the practice than the structure. What do you think?
Well, the structure must be put in place before the practice. If you don't have structure, you can't have good practices. And if you don't set up good framework for the law to be able to midwife effective policing, then we'll be heading towards the rocks.
Now, funding is one major issue a lot of people have drawn attention to. When it comes to the state policing, if it has to be taken from that perspective, how do you think some states are going to find this challenging?
Well, I've also said that, let me take, for instance, a very notable politician in Nigeria, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Asiwaju will tell you that it is the hand that you have that you use in scratching your head. The elephant will not go borrow the hand of an ant in order to scratch his itch. So in every state, we have our different peculiarities, we have a different population and all of that. And the first form of government is to provide security for its people. Beyond that, government must look out of the box, think out of the box, work out of the box in order to generate funds. And the federal structure as it is now must be restructured. More powers must be given to state, more power be given to local government in order to control their resources and generate it, and of course apply it as the law provides. If we don't do that, then states will continue to have challenges in funding security operations. And beyond that, like I've said often, that the civil society, the press, also need to monitor these finances as they are generated and as they are expended. If you don't, it will give room for a lot of corruptive loopholes for funds to be siphoned. If we can plug off wastages, plug off corruptive loopholes, then no state can tell us that they don't have funds. And capital is not only limited to funds. You can also have capital, human capital, that can be used effectively to bridge the gap of funding by being very creative and ingenious, and the things will work effectively well.
All right. Ayodele Adewale, thank you very much for talking to us on TVC Breakfast.